Hi, Dennis Weiss for Eagle Communications. We're here at the Eisenhower Presidential Library and Museum with our new show, Why Like Ike? Yes. I know you like Ike.
Absolutely.
I can see the button. This is the curator of the museum, Mr. William Snyder.
Hi, Dennis. Thanks
How's
for coming
your
back
world?
again. It's wonderful. Thanks. How's yours?
That's great.
Good.
But you have a special thing for us today. You have a complete display behind us and on a table in front of us regarding Dwight David Eisenhower and painting. Why?
Why? Well, of course, many people know of Ike, the five-star general and president of the United States, but they may not know that he liked to paint as a hobby and as a form of relaxation in his spare time.
Other presidents have painted, other world leaders have painted. It seems to be something that they need to do when they're not saving the world, huh?
Something like that. Yeah. As a matter of fact, there's a great story. We're not sure how true it is, but
great stories, isn't it?
But during World War II, Eisenhower was up to smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a day under the stress, as you might expect. And Sir Winston Churchill, who enjoyed his own cigars, advised Ike that he probably smoked too much. Maybe he should find another way to relax. He should probably take up painting, because Churchill himself was a painter.
Right.
So we don't know if that's exactly true, but we do know that...
If it's not, it should be.
It should be. It's a great story. It's
a
great story.
You know, my dad came home smoking 4 packs a day, too. So I think a lot of GIs, including Dwight David Eisenhower, found that as an outlet for the stress they were under.
Definitely.
Okay, so take us through the legacy of Dwight David Eisenhower and painting. When did he get started after, let's say Churchill told him to start painting? When did he pick up a brush?
The first time we know he picked up a brush was when he was president of Columbia University, and that was from 1948 to 1950. And the university had hired a portrait painter named Thomas Stevens to come in and paint a portrait of Mamie as First Lady of Columbia University.
Sure.
So they were almost finished, and apparently Mamie and Stevens went out someplace into the home to try and find a place to hang the portrait, and I picked up a scrap of canvas and some of the paints that the artist had left and tried to copy Mamie's portrait. And they came back into the room and everybody had a good laugh because Ike's attempt was so bad. But the very next day, Stevens sent Ike a painting kit, and that was it. He painted for the rest of his life, the next 20 years. Many
of the things behind us on the wall were gifts to a president, right?
We do have gifts to the president, yes. And this is one of them here. It was either the first or second Christmas he was in the White House. His staff and cabinet got together, and of course paint by numbers were very popular in the 1950s. And as a surprise Christmas present, slight joke perhaps, they all painted a different paint by numbers and gave the president this whole set of paint by numbers. So this is the one that was painted by Herbert Burnell, who was Ike's Attorney General.
The Attorney General of the United States painted by the numbers this picture.
So
who would have guessed?
Who would have guessed?
Right.
And then a couple of years later, again, because pretty much the world knew that Ike was the painter president, we even have this paint by numbers that was done by Broadway and movie star Ethel Merman.
And I'll bet she sang the whole time. What do you think?
She might have. It's certainly as colorful as Ethel was, so absolutely.
I am really excited about this particular program because when people think of Dwight David Eisenhower, they do not think about painting.
I don't think so, no. And he said that he found it very relaxing because it freed up his mind to think about other things. Now, to me, that doesn't sound like a way to relax, but it did for Ike, and it just really shows that his mind was constantly busy. He was always on the bigger picture, even if he was painting.
Yeah, you know, it's for somebody whose mind is at that level, I would imagine it's almost impossible to turn it off.
I would think so.
So your only choice is to think about something else, to focus that energy on, and many people choose this.
Yes.
You know, every time we film one of these shows, we talk about relevance, and gosh, this opens up Dwight David Eisenhower's relevance to a completely different layer of our community, wider community.
And I think particularly relevant right now, just came out not too long ago, was the movie The Monuments Men, about recovering the art after World War II that the Nazis had looted. Many people don't know that Eisenhower was instrumental in setting up that group so that he really felt that art belonged, with its original owners or in its original country where it was created. And Later, while he was in office, many folks may not know this either, the United States did not have a National Performing Arts Center. So what we call the Kennedy Center now, we have thanks to Ike and Mamie Eisenhower. They really led the charge to get that built. So, you know, the arts and culture were very important to the Eisenhowers.
You know, I thought about the Monuments Men quite a few times since we had Robert Edsel here and interviewed him and thought about the comments. And I think about what you just said about it was important to Eisenhower to undergo that return of that property to the owners. Many of the owners were gone.
Yes.
But there was a lot of property taken that didn't get returned to owners.
Right.
This property was special more than property because it was not only personal property, it was considered, and still today, property of such great value to the rest of the world that an overarching commitment had to be made to return it and restore it.
Very well said. That's it, and that's exactly the way that Ike felt about it too.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting. I look at some of the things that I've never seen before, and I come here frequently, so, you know, that are up on the wall behind us. And the range of people that reached out to Dwight David Eisenhower through art and the numbers of people that he reached back to. We have things that are up here that were gifts from Eisenhower to other people as well. So art was very much a part of Dwight David Eisenhower's later life.
It definitely was. He was very fond of painting portraits, either of people he knew or historical figures that he admired, like the Lincoln portrait behind us. But he would frequently paint portraits of his friends and give them as gifts, or sometimes if you had a special hobby that you like to do, you might be painted doing that activity. So behind me on this side we have General Anthony Biddle that Ike painted his portrait of, and actually signed it on the back to him.
Okay.
And there's a couple of portraits that I've seen, unfortunately just photographs, we don't have them here in the collection. But he painted some of his friends, and when he gave them to them, he wrote on the back of the canvas, "With apologies, Ike."
I wonder if he wrote that to his brother Milton.
No, this is his youngest brother Milton, so that is a good portrait. So
that's my middle name, by the way. My grandfather was named Milton, and I'm proud to carry it. So
good.
Must have been popular at the time.
Must have been. So, but he also liked to paint landscapes, and he did a few still lifes, but it was mostly portraits and landscapes that he liked to paint. And often the landscapes were places he had been on his travels around the world, things that were, you know, really important for him to remember, and he just kind of liked experimenting with them and getting them down.
When I walked in a room today, in fact, you caught me out mesmerized in the exhibits, as I always just get stuck, and I was stuck in a section that I often get stuck at, and you go, you know, that's my least favorite part of the museum.
Well, we gotta tell people
but here's the deal. There's so much here that people have such diverse tastes in what interests them. We're not unusual in that regard, right?
No, not at all.
The world all is attracted to different things, but you can come here and I guarantee you, whatever age you are, whatever interest you are, there is something on display that will captivate your interest.
Thank you for saying that, Dennis. I think that's absolutely true, and we're so fortunate that not only do we have those 8 years of the presidency, we have Ike's 40-year military career to tell the story about too, which is really speaks to different audiences, just those two topics alone, let alone everything else we might touch on. If
we had a magic wand, you and I feel that the very first wave would be exactly the same, and this building would go from this size to about this size, and it would all be on display. If it were possible, what's contained here is a huge treasure trove of history of incalculable value to the world.
Absolutely. And, you know, there may not necessarily be any intrinsic value in what the piece is, but just what the story it tells.
Historical value.
And I think that's important too. And, you know, one of the things that we're so fortunate that the collection is so vast that we do have the opportunity to rotate different artifacts through different parts of the exhibit, and so there's always, it may just be one or two things out that might be different the next time you come, but there's always something new out for people to see.
I like to give credit where I believe where credit is due, and of course that's one man's opinion, mine, and I'm talking, so here we go. You know, since Carl has been here, there has just been a wonderful healthy feeling about what happens in this facility. It's open to the public in many ways. The door just opens, and Carl and his team come in and share.
Absolutely.
And
That's why we're
when
here.
we do come in and share, the staff, of which we have you on camera today, has put their creativity and their energy into making these treasure trove of artifacts available to see. That's a critical component. It's right there behind the glass, and it's not a photograph, it's not an internet, it's not a click on Google. It's right there, just inches away behind the glass. It affects people differently when
Absolutely.
it's real in front of you.
Yes. And we're so fortunate that we have such a great team, and it really is a team effort. No one person does any particular aspect of our jobs here. Everybody pulls together, and I think that's why it just works so well, and so I'm glad you think that it's welcoming, and I
Great.
hope most of our visitors do too.
Yeah,
So.
I'm sure they do. Up behind me,
Yes.
first of all, we have a president of a very happy guy, a
Yes.
picture of a very happy guy up there painting.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful, that's certainly in retirement. It's one of the few color photographs we have of Eisenhower, and just to see him smiling into the camera and having a good time painting.
Yeah.
So.
I would like to point out for folks that that the team here produced that display
Yes.
from a photograph, and it takes money to do those things. And so that many of the donations that trickle in the door here go towards making these sorts of things available, as well as through the funding of our tax dollars in NARA. It's a tremendous opportunity. Instead of just a little photograph, that you guys can produce that
Yes.
and put it on
Well, thank you.
display.
Yes.
Yeah. And then right next to that, looks like that was shot in my hometown where I grew up. It wasn't
not.
probably, but
No.
tell us the history of that photograph.
Well, that's a
painting.
That painting is actually not by Eisenhower, but I wanted to put out a few while we were doing this episode that were gifts to the president. And we talked about at the beginning Winston Churchill being a painter. That is a Churchill painting. And at one point he offered Ike his choice of 3 of his own paintings, and that is the Churchill that Eisenhower selected to keep.
Yeah, that looks like Southwest Colorado in the springtime to me.
It's a beautiful painting. We're very fortunate to be able to have that.
Yeah.
So,
it is. Well, okay. So there's one we haven't talked about as we near the end of the program that should be an inspiration to everybody watching.
could I talk about one other one that we haven't talked about
Absolutely.
first?
Yes,
Would that be okay?
yes.
Well, behind me on this side, we have a wonderful painting that was done in the late 1950s by Native American artist Oscar Howe. And he was actually featured on the television show This Is Your Life in 1960.
Oh.
And the producers, as a surprise to Oscar Howe, their guest on that episode, they secretly purchased that painting from Mr. Howe's wife to give to President Eisenhower. And so
Oh,
that
I
was
see.
presented to Eisenhower as part of that program. So we're very fortunate to be able to have that in the collection too, because again, it's just such a range of artwork that we have in the collection. And so, that one goes on display every once in a while as well.
Well, that's great. The art community would be very interested in the range of things we have in the room today. And the good news is they'll get to see them in the museum.
That's right. That's right. So the one we haven't talked about that you said should be inspiration to everyone is this small still life in front of you. And our collection continues to grow, and this particular painting was given to us just a few years ago. Ike painted that and presented it to one of his staff members. And in later life, this gentleman and his wife never had any children, so as a thank you to their caregiver, they gave her the 2 Eisenhower paintings that they had. She apparently did not appreciate them. And in later life, when her children were cleaning out her home, they discovered these 2 paintings on a dusty shelf in a fruit cellar in her basement, as they called it. So she just told them, throw everything in the basement away. And we're so very fortunate that they realized
That they looked at the back.
They looked at the back and noticed the DE initials on the signature on the front,
Yeah.
and so they called us up and said, "Would you like 2 more paintings?" And of course we said yes.
Maybe that's why I never throw anything out at home. I really don't know if I have a painting by Dwight David Eisenhower around, but if I
No.
did, I would still have it.
That's right. That's right. So never throw anything away.
And a lovely painting, too.
It is indeed.
Lovely
It is indeed.
painting, too. I look at the numbers of people who fair word maybe, retreat into art to relieve the pressures of their mind in a healthy way.
Yes.
Creates beauty for the rest of us in a way that they maybe never, they certainly didn't plan on,
Right.
probably never thought about.
That's right. Ike gave most of these paintings away. He kept very few of his own, so we're very fortunate that they've been trickling into the museum over the years. We have about 40 of his paintings in the collection, including 2 that were left unfinished at the time of his death. So we have those as well.
Well, William, it's been a terrific show today. Talk about a part of Ike's life that many people don't know about. It certainly will perk the ears up of some viewers that said, wow, I need to go see that art.
Absolutely.
And I need to talk to those folks about Eisenhower and the art that's contained here in the halls of the Eisenhower Presidential Library. Sure enjoyed visiting with you. We appreciate all of the staff and the expertise that you folks bring to preserving the legacy of one of the greatest men that has ever served our country.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Great to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Folks, we appreciate the opportunity to present Why Like Ike here at the Eisenhower Presidential Library and Museum. For Eagle Communications, I'm Dennis Weiss. Have a great day.